Information security consists of three main components, the first being data integrity, which entails the accuracy and the completeness of information throughout its life cycle. The second component is confidentiality, which refers to who's allowed to see what kinds of data and when. The last component is availability, which has to do how and when the data is accessed. A hacker can be hard to define. One aspect of a hacker is somebody who gains access to a system in a way that was not originally intended. It can also refer to an individual who has taken a system and bent it in a way that goes beyond what it was initially meant to be used for. Today, there are many different kinds of hackers. The one that most people are familiar with is a black hat hacker, a person who, by illegal means, gains access to a system that they are not authorized to be in. Another kind of hacker is a white hat hacker, a person who is usually hired by a company or a person who uses their time to find bugs and alert people of system vulnerabilities. They are often seen as good, but are despised by black hackers by revealing their means of entry into many systems. In between the two, there are gray hat hackers, which may often use illegal methods to break into machines. Often people who are engaged in cyber activism fall into this category, but not always. Not much information is currently known about the hackers who engaged in the Target hack. What is known is that they were taking the information and exporting it to some systems in Russia. Whether these people were actually Russian or simply using the Russian country as an in-between for their final destination is unknown.
Question 1. How did the hacker steal Target's customer data? It is reported that the breach comes from a third-party heating and cooling contractor that may have given the hacker avenue to infiltrate the system. A simple email that was opened by at least one employee can cause a breach such as this one. It is said that the data theft was caused by the installation of malware on the firm's point-of-sale machines. So it was accessed by a third-party vendor with security flaws in their system, and it provided the bridge needed for the hackers to break into Target's system. I was able to find a step-by-step report on how the hackers actually infiltrated Target's point-of-sale system through the air conditioning HVAC vendor. This was a massive breach, and it's important to understand this because there's still hackers out there. They're still doing this, and it's important to have an understanding. So step 1 is they installed malware that steals the credentials, and this is how it all started. Step 2 is connect using stolen credentials. So they were able to gain access to Target web services dedicated to vendors using the stolen credentials for the HVAC company. Step 3, exploit a web application vulnerability. Basically, they're finding the weakness. Step 4, search for relevant targets for propagation. Step 5, steal access token from domain admin. Step 6, create a domain admin account using the stolen token. Step 7 is I was able to find a step-by-step report
and I couldn't load the page.
how
Step
the
7,
hackers actually
propagate to relevant
Target's
computers
point-of-sale
using
system
new admin credentials.
through the air conditioning
Step 8
HVAC
is
vendor.
steal 70 million
This was
PIIs,
a
do not find credit
massive
cards.
breach, and
Step 9, install
malware,
malware, steal 40 million
there's
credit
still
cards.
hackers out there. They're still doing
Step
this.
10, send stolen data via network
it's
share,
important
and
to have
step
an
11,
understanding.
send stolen data.
So step 1
via FTP
is they installed
because not
malware
only
that
do
they
they steal
steal
this data,
and
the personal
this is
data,
how
which
it
was
all
70 million, and
started.
the 40 million credit cards is they put this
Step
on the
2
black
is
market,
using,
or they were trying to
using
stolen
put it on the black
credentials.
market to sell.
So
I thought it'd also be important to include the definition of a few words that we've already learned about that are relevant to the story. The first is phishing. This is a fraudulent thing that happens through emails. It has a negative intentions. The whole process is intentional, and their goal is to obtain personal information for the misuse. Often they're after passwords or credit card information. Next, we have malware, and that is a software. It's something that gets in the system to disrupt, damage, and gain access. And lastly, we have hacker. That's a person who uses computers to gain access to unauthorized information. So, in the situation with Target, we have a hacker who sent out a phishing email that was able to install malware once it was opened to infiltrate the system. Question 2. What types of technology could big retailers use to prevent identity thieves from stealing information? I think before you can answer the question, what could be used to prevent, you should look at what was used. And in the article that I found, it says what was used is from this site, and it is a free version of Malwarebytes Anti-Malware. As you see, that is shown here. It is shown under the personal use, and then from there, there's 2 other options, but for personal. Now, the article doesn't actually clarify if they're referring to Target or if they're referring to the third-party air conditioning contractor. I'm guessing it's them because they were the ones that were hacked and then brought that into Target. And without knowing too much, it's hard to say, but it does show here, this is what they were using. It was just a free version that all it does is remove malware. Now, with the same company for Malwarebytes Anti-Malware, I decided to take a look at the business options. I had to divide it up, and I still wasn't able to show everything. It goes further on the right hand of the screen. It does have a few more options, but at least it shows when you're, for one, using a business account and protection for a business.
Can also be upgraded to
You obviously you need a lot more than just protects from malware. Also,
this is a big one
it shows
on your
everything it
computer.
does. The one that they recommend obviously is the most expensive one, but it's endpoint protection, and that's the one that continues on. But it has the web protection, application hardening.
Having a computer password
It has
manager.
a lot
Every
more things that it's
computer now
protecting.
has
And
this
if you are in
ability
a
of
company,
having this
it may be
manager
hard to see
where
that you need something
can
like this.
store both
If you are a
information,
smaller
logins,
company
and
like this air
complicated
conditioning thing, where
without
opposed to
having
Target,
to remember
obviously
every
you would think
single
has all of this
password for the
protection
different logins of
because they
information.
have a bigger customer range.
Enabling two-factor
But you also have to
identification
think about, as a
using
smaller
both an
company,
email and
you
or a
doing
text
business
message
with
some
other
type of
businesses
identification.
are bringing on their customers
Hovering over
into
a web
your
link in an email to see if
security
it's
needs.
legit is actually a method
Now, with the same company for Malwarebytes Anti-Malware, I decided to take a look at the business options. I had to divide it up, and I still wasn't able to show everything.
is actually
It goes
legitimate
further on the
website.
right hand of the screen. It does have a few more options, but at
Using
least it
an
shows
ad blocker lets you
um,
block
when
origin
you're,
on your browser,
for one,
and
using a
also
business
adding an
account and
extension on the
protection for a
browser for
business.
HTTPS
Um,
everywhere. If
you
it's
obviously you need a
capable
lot more than
of
just protects
having a
from
secure
malware.
link
Also,
to a
it shows everything
website
it
that
does.
doesn't have
The one that they
SMAs
recommend, obviously,
or
is the most
security.
expensive one, but it's endpoint protection, and that's the one
Question
that
4.
continues on.
In a
But it
2-minute
has the web
research
protection application
the
hardening.
internet and find the best ways to protect
It has
yourself from identity
a lot
theft.
more things that it's
This was
protecting.
a icon
And
that
if
really
you are
caught
in
my
a company,
interest.
it may
So
be
I
hard to see that
included,
you need
hey,
something like
somebody
this.
stole an
If
identity
you are a
I was
smaller
stealing.
company, like this air conditioning thing, we're
So
opposed to
protecting yourself
Target,
against identity
obviously,
theft
you would
has
think
common
has
themes as
all of this
well as the
protection
same as the
because they
company.
have a bigger customer
Freezing your
range.
credit report
But you
so
also
that
have to think
nobody is
about, as a
allowed
smaller
to
company,
take things out in your
you
name with your
doing
social security
business
number.
with other
Shredding
businesses
personal
are
documents
bringing on
as
their
a big one.
customers
Creating
and
complex
to your
passwords again. If you create that
security
on your
needs.
computer, whether at work or at home, you can have a password
Now, with the
manager
same company
to keep
for
that for you.
Malwarebytes Anti-Malware,
Using two-factor
I
authentication
decided to
again.
take a look at the
Creating
business
fraud alerts
options.
with your bank
I had to
account
divide it up, and I still wasn't
that
able
notifies
to
you if
show
there's an
everything.
unusual purchase.
It goes further
And
on the right
storing
hand of the
personal
screen. It does have a
information in
few
a
more
safe,
options,
such
but at
as
least
birth
it shows
certificates, credit cards, should be fireproof
when you're, for one,
and
using a business
able
account and
to
protection for a business.
withstand
Um,
if something
you
should
obviously
go
you need a
wrong.
lot more than just protects from malware. Also,
In summary, the Target hack was
it
actually
shows
initially
everything it
started through an
does.
outside vendor,
The one
being
that
an
they
HVAC
recommend,
system.
obviously, is the
The
most
HVAC
expensive
company
one,
had
but
access
it's
to certain parts of the
endpoint
Target network. From
protection,
there, the hackers were able
and
to
that's the one that
infiltrate
continues
actual Target
on.
systems and install
But it has
malware.
the web
The
protection
alert systems
application
that Target had
hardening.
put in place were actually
It
effective
has
and did alert the
a
Target
lot
staff
more
of the
things that it's
vulnerability and the
protecting.
exploitation of
And if
data
you are
to
in a
servers
company,
across the
it
United
may be
States,
hard to
then
see that
going
you
to
need
Russia.
something like this.
Despite this,
If you are a
the issue
smaller
was that the
company,
internal
like this
team
air
did not take
conditioning
any
thing,
steps during
where
this
opposed to
point that the
Target,
alert system had been
obviously, you
tripped.
think has all of this
Target,
protection
while utilizing many of these tools,
because they have a
failed to
bigger
actually
customer
act
range.
upon the
But
exploitation of
you
the
also have
data.
to think about, as a smaller
There's nothing that can
company,
truly be done unless
you
actual personnel takes the
doing
time
business
to stop the
with other
exploitation of data or
businesses
stop the
are bringing
vulnerability
on
while it's
their
occurring.
customers
Alert systems are
and
just
to
alert
your
systems.
security needs. Now, with the same company,